Why does a helicopter hover in the sky without a runway? The secret lies in a component only the size of a rice cooker, a physics trick that makes pilots fly sideways when they want to go forward, and 540 years of history beginning with Leonardo da Vinci's strange sketch. Welcome to Secrets of Everyday Things, the channel where everyday secrets are uncovered and explained. Picture yourself standing perfectly still in midair. No runway, no rush forward. Just hanging there like gravity forgot you for a few minutes. That is the strangest moment a human being has ever pulled off above the ground. Most planes have to charge ahead to fly, but a helicopter just sits there, tilts a little, and slides sideways, swings around, drifts backward, and pulls off tricks even birds cannot fully manage. You probably remember being a kid and craning your neck to watch a chopper pass over the house, the rotor thumping the air hard enough to rattle the windows, and you could not look away. That feeling was not random. Inside that hovering machine sits one of the most elegant inventions humans have ever pieced together, and most of us have never really understood how it works. The story starts earlier than you would guess. Around 1483, more than 500 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci sketched something in his notebook that looked like a giant screw made of linen and wood. He called it the aerial screw. The idea was simple enough. If a screw can dig into water, why not a screw that digs into air and lifts a person up with it? Of course, no engine of his time was strong enough to spin it, and Leonardo did not yet know how different air is from water. The drawing sat quietly in his notebook for centuries, like a beautiful daydream frozen in place. But here is the detail that still stuns the world today. Leonardo guessed right about the deepest soul of vertical flight, that something has to spin in a circle right above your head. It took until November 13th, 1907, in a small field in Normandy, France, for the idea to lift off the page. A bicycle repairman named Paul Cornu, only in his 20s, bolted a 24-horsepower engine onto a skinny iron frame with two rotors. The locals called it the flying bicycle. Cornu climbed in, opened the throttle, and the contraption rose about 5 feet off the ground and floated for roughly 20 seconds before settling back down. 20 seconds sounds short, but those were the first 20 seconds in human history when a person sat on a machine that flew while standing still. Cornu later admitted his machine could not be controlled and walked away from the project. But the door was open. For 30 years afterward, dozens of engineers around the world tried and failed. Some died. Some went broke. Then in 1939, in Stratford, Connecticut, a Russian immigrant named Igor Sikorsky talked his board into giving him $30,000 to try a wildly different design. One large main rotor on top, one small tail rotor, both running off the same engine. On September 14, 1939, Sikorsky climbed into the cockpit of the VS-300 himself, with safety cables still tying it to the ground, and the machine lifted a few inches into the air for about 10 seconds. 10 seconds, just a few finger widths off the dirt, and yet that day changed everything. 8 months later, he cut the cables and flew free. By 1942, his R-4 became the first helicopter ever mass-produced. From that point on, every helicopter you see overhead carries the layout Sikorsky drew in that little workshop. Now comes the part that even people who have worked on helicopters their entire lives still call magic. From a distance, the rotor on top is just a few blades spinning in a circle. But each one of those blades is actually an airplane wing. Yes, really. Each blade is curved like the wing of a tiny Boeing, rounded on top, flatter on the bottom, and as it slices through the air, pressure drops above and rises below, making lift. The trick is that a plane has to roar forward to push wind across its wings, while a helicopter just stands still and spins its wings in a circle to make the same wind. A helicopter is basically an airplane that turns around itself. It sounds simple, but it is one of those ideas that flips your brain. You take the problem of flying forward, fold it in half, and turn it into the problem of flying still. That is not even the hard part. To stand still, the rotor only needs to spin steadily. But to slide left, right, backward, or to nudge up or down, you need something a lot cleverer. There is a comment under one of the engineering videos online where a guy admits he almost cried when he saw this mechanism work. It is called the swashplate, 2 metal discs stacked through a bearing. The bottom disc stays still and connects to the pilot's stick. The top disc spins with the rotor. When the pilot pushes the stick, the bottom disc tilts a few degrees. The top disc tilts along with it, and each blade, as it spins past a certain point, pitches up or down a little. The result, lift behind the rotor differs from lift in front, and the whole helicopter tips that way. A part barely bigger than a rice cooker, and yet that is the only way humans have ever found to manage hundreds of blade twists per second without a single wire long enough to reach the rotor. Now comes the second brain flip. The pilot wants to go forward, so he tilts the swash plate forward. Makes sense, right? Wrong. The helicopter does not go forward, it slides sideways. This is one of the strangest tricks in physics called gyroscopic precession. When you push on a spinning object, it does not react where you pushed it. It reacts 90 degrees later in the spin. If you ever tried to tilt a fast-spinning bicycle wheel held in your hands, you saw it twist in some weird direction that has nothing to do with the way you were pushing. Helicopter pilots live with this every second they fly. Their brains have to absorb a logic that is so backward to common sense that every fresh student feels like they are playing a video game on a screen rotated 90 degrees. Speaking of video games, think back. Did anyone here actually try to fly a helicopter in GTA San Andreas around 2004 without laughing till they cried? The keyboard controls felt inverted, and right when you thought you got it, the chopper smacked into the closest building. To this day, 20 years later, somebody is still leaving the comment, "Now I get why the helicopter mission in San Andreas was so hard." It turns out the game was not picking on you. It was simulating exactly what real pilots fight with every single day. A US Army flight instructor once said something every pro nods at. Helicopter pilots fly by constantly correcting the mistakes they just made. Meaning every second in the air, the pilot is not steering perfectly, he is rescuing the machine from the slip he just caused. Hovering is not really standing still. It is falling slowly thousands of times in a row and saving yourself each time. Here is one more detail most videos skip. When a helicopter moves forward, the two sides of the rotor are no longer equal. The blade spinning the same direction as the flight catches more wind. That is the advancing blade. The blade on the other side spins against the flight, and that is the retreating blade. The advancing blade makes more lift than the retreating blade, and if nothing fixed it, the chopper would roll over within seconds. Nature gave the rotor a beautiful trick called blade flapping. The advancing blade with extra lift flaps a little higher, which lowers its angle of attack and trims the lift back down. The retreating blade with less lift flaps a little lower, which raises its angle and brings the lift back up. The two blades quietly negotiate with each other, with no one giving orders, in just fractions of a second per spin. That machine balances itself, the way a cat twists in the air while falling. Then there is the question every kid who ever stared at a helicopter has asked, why is that little blade on the tail spinning too? It is not for looks. By Newton's third law, when the main rotor spins one way, the body wants to spin the other way. Without something to stop it, the whole helicopter would whirl around like a top. The tail rotor blows air sideways, pushes the tail back the other direction, and keeps the body steady. Anytime you see a news report about a helicopter crash because the tail clipped a power line or a tree branch, that is always a serious one. Lose the tail rotor and you lose all control. But not every helicopter actually needs a tail rotor. The US military has the Chinook CH-47 with two huge rotors on the front and back of the body, each spinning the opposite way, canceling each other out, and the thing can lift a small tank weighing 48,000 pounds. MD helicopters built the Rotor system, short for no-tail rotor, which uses a hidden fan in the tail boom, blowing air through two slots, leaning on the Coanda effect so the air sticks to the boom and pushes back, no tail blade required. The Russian Ka-50 has two main rotors stacked on top of each other, spinning in opposite directions, and just throws the tail rotor away. So the next time someone tells you, every helicopter has a tail rotor, you will know that is not entirely true. The beauty of the helicopter is not just in the physics, it is in what it has done for people. During the Vietnam War, around 390,000 wounded American soldiers were saved by medevac helicopters. Back in the Korean War, a wounded soldier had to wait 4 to 6 hours to reach a hospital. In Vietnam, thanks to the Bell UH-1, nicknamed the Huey, that wait dropped to 35 minutes. The death rate from wounds dropped to the lowest of any war before it. And that thump, thump, thump sound the Huey blades made became one of the most haunting and most beloved sounds of an entire generation. For a wounded soldier, it was the sound of life on its way. For a veteran back in the States, it is the sound on a movie screen that still tightens his chest today. Helicopters can also be terrifying. In January 2020, the whole country went quiet when Kobe Bryant died. The Sikorsky S-76B carrying him, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others slammed into a hillside in Calabasas, California. The investigation concluded the pilot flew into thick clouds, lost his sense of direction in space, and never realized the machine was diving. The condition is called spatial disorientation, when your inner ear stops telling your brain which way is up. Sometimes a pilot is so flipped around inside that he is sure he is climbing, while the helicopter is actually plunging straight down. That crash reminded the world of something pilots have known forever. A helicopter does not forgive mistakes. That is also why every pilot has to master a skill called autorotation. When the engine quits in midair, you would think a helicopter falls like a rock. It does not. The pilot pushes the collective stick down, lets the wind from below stream up through the blades and keep them spinning by themselves. Right before the ground, the pilot pulls the stick back up, turning the energy stored in the spinning blades into one last burst of lift to set the chopper down softly. It is a bit like coasting a bicycle down a hill and using your momentum to glide to a stop. Put another way, even when the heart of a helicopter quits beating, it can still fly down on the very force that is pulling it down. That is one of the most graceful escape tricks mechanical design has ever come up with. Put it all together, and a helicopter stops being just a machine. It is a mechanical symphony. Every second of flight is thousands of tiny adjustments between the rotor, the swashplate, the tail rotor, the pilot's hands, and physics most of us only ever heard about in passing. The idea began with Leonardo's pencil, ran through Cornu's flying bicycle, was put on a production line by Sikorsky, and is now circling above us every day. From a medevac in Texas, to a morning news traffic report in New York, to a sightseeing tour over the Grand Canyon. The next time you look up and hear those blades thumping the air, remember that the sound is the sum of 540 years of imagination, 2 world wars, thousands of failed attempts, and a quiet chain of geniuses who never met each other in person. That machine that looks so simple is really one of the quietest miracles around us. It only looks simple because it was built by minds that understood the hard parts down to the bone. Have you ever flown in a helicopter or just watched them from the ground? I'd love to read your stories below.